All right, so this is Spoiler Raiders again. Now, if you watch part one and part two of Ethel's performance in Pinky, I am now going to give you the rating of her performance. Now, remember, I have four ratings for Black nominated performances: Black Excellence, I Rock With It, A Little Too Sus for Me, and Coontastic Crap. Now, for this performance, based on everything I said in the slideshow of part two, I'm going to give Ethel's role in Pinky a little too sus for me. It's getting a little too sus for me rating. Why? I mean, on one hand, it's not as bad as Hattie McDaniel's role in Gone with the Wind. Okay, I will admit that it's not as bad as Hattie's role in Gone with the Wind. Okay, at least Dicey Johnson has a first and last name. At least she has evidence of a family through Pinky, of course. And she basically by the end of the film is working for or around black people more. So it's not like she has to work under a white person. Well, technically her granddaughter, but save the semantics, she doesn't have to actually work under white people as much. Now she has kind of a better job than before. And she's actually getting paid for it. So that's some improvement compared to Hattie's role. But at the same time, her character still gives the whole mammy-ish thing. It's a little mammy-ish still. And how, I mean, if you not read, but if you watch my Why the Mammy Trope is Bad, my other video, I basically explain the three reasons why the mammy trope is bad, in my opinion. And one of the first reason I mentioned was that it gives the physical juxtaposition between the white woman and the black woman. And even though Pinky's part black, they still use a full white actress to play the role. So it still gave off, especially when they're next to each other, because she is around her grandma a lot. But once Dicey and Pinky are next to each other a lot, it just screams like, I mean, let's put it this way. If you didn't know what the movie was about, you probably thought this was Gone with the Wind Part 2 or something. You thought that was just another Scarlett O'Hara and Mammy, you know, whatever. I mean, seriously, if you did not know what the movie was about, you thought that was just a white lady and her black maid, and they're real cool with each other because they're hugging or something. But no, she's her mostly white granddaughter, but still she's played by a white actress, so it still gives off of how contrasting they look. I mean, you got Pinky, who, like I said, is played by a white Jean Crane, and she's skinnier, younger, obviously, because she's the granddaughter, and she's not totally dressed in rags. Now, you do see her in regular clothes. She's not totally like fancy, in pimped out dresses like Scarlett O'Hara, but she's not looking totally raggedy like her grandma. No offense, I'm just saying she's not looking totally raggedy like her grandma. Now she was wearing like a hanger. Okay, she was wearing a headscarf and like scrubbing the clothes when she was taking over for her grandma when she was a little sick and she had to do the laundry to raise money for the upcoming court case she was about to go to. So that's the most raggedy we saw her. But other than that, she's in her nurse's garb. She's in just a regular dress, or she's not looking raggedy. Period. So yeah, and at least at the end of the film, like I said, if you watch the review, because remember, I am spoiling endings and stuff. So if you're like, oh, don't tell me what the ending is, come on. The title of the channel, it speaks for itself. But yeah, but the ending of the movie, like I said, she is around a bunch of younger, obvious black women, and they're all professional. And that's one of the other reasons I like the ending. She is surrounded by a bunch of young, up and coming nurses. They're all obvious black chicks. They're all young in professional garbs. They're not clean. They're not wiping anything. They're not maids. They're about to be nurses. So they either are already nurses or they're training to be nurses. And so they all look like they're around, if not a bit, maybe a bit younger than Pinky. So, and they all look good. They're all, skinny and fit and, not looking too drabby or whatever. And yeah, they're all in uniform. So, yeah, I love that they show professional black women in the end, especially next to a white nurse, mostly white nurse, whatever. So yeah, I give and yes, and Pinky treats them well and respectable, and she's not putting them down out of jealousy or anything. She helps them out, and yeah, I swear the ending really. I like the ending. I mean, if you watch the movie for anything else, just watch it for the ending at least. So there's that, but even though, like I said, you know, I mean, the physical juxtaposition is still there because that was just the ending. Dicey is in the movie for a majority of the movie. Okay, she's in there long enough to where it's like she's the only black woman in the movie for the most part. Like, besides Shiesty Jake's girlfriend, who they roughed up, before they all got sent to the police court or police station or whatever, you know, that was the only other black chicks before you saw, all the other ones in the end. But Dicey is just the only main black chick in the movie that is around Pinky that has that has a lot of lines. And yeah, so you know I get it. She is a grandma and she has an adult grandchild. So, I mean, look, we're not going to all look great when we get older, okay? I understand that. We're not going to all look like Angela Bassett when we're in our 60s. I get it. But it still just gives off the you know, Mammy Scarlet picture comparison when you put Pinky and Dicey in the same picture. Like I said, I mean, Dicey's bigger, older, like I said, dressed in rags, while Pinky's more, you know, skinnier, younger, and, dressed more nicely. So it still has that. So that's like a sneaky way of doing it. And another sneaky way of showing the mammy trope in this movie is like back to the video why I don't like the mammy trope. It's also because it shows the black mammy character as taking care of the white family or white character above her own. Now, yes, Pinky is her biological granddaughter, but at the same time, that's her only relative, her only living relative. We don't really see her take it. There's no other family member mentioned. Like her daughter, Dicey's daughter's dead. There's no mention of her having a husband, and my theory about who the father of, you know, or I'm sorry, who the father of, not the okay, the grandfather of Pinky is, and who Pinky's dad might be. I'll mention it, but yeah, definitely I break that possibility down into part two. But besides that, it's like there's no other living family members to really for Dicey to be around. I mean, before even Pinky came back, she was kind of helping Miss M for the most part. Now, even that friendship is like, I mean, it's already one sided, but we don't even see any examples of that. There's no dialogue between Miss M or Dicey. You don't really see them in scenes together except for that one scene. But other than that, we're supposed to believe she just hangs out with Miss M to the point where it's like, oh, you know, she's so heartbroken of her dying. It's like, wow, you had no other friends to hang out with, Dicey. I mean, I know, someone like Jake was ripping you off, but there's no other black person around town you could have interacted with a little more. So, yeah, it's like outside of our granddaughter, who already is technically white, there's literally no other family members that she's really talking to like that. So, yeah. And yeah, we wish there was like kind of a mentioning of, and then that's another part I did mention bring up in the why the mammy trope was bad is like it, the reason too of why it's bad, like I said, taking care of the white character or white family above her own. It's like they making sure she doesn't have any family members, so she has no choice but to take care of the white family or the white character. Like, oh, like her kid's dead. Like, oh, she has no family. She doesn't have any husband. She has nobody else. She's just all by herself and she just needs somebody to take care of. So this white person just happens to be there for her to take care of. It's like that in this story too. But like I said, even though, like I said, her granddaughter is in her life, she looks well. I mean, if you didn't know they were related, you would think she was just taking care of some white lady who hired her. So it, you know, they kind of, I mean, they kind of make her character more of a mystery, like not just a mystery, but it's like, okay, like I said, well, why does Pinky look the way she does? And my theory of the one drop rule, I don't go by that. Okay, I know a lot of black people go by that. It's like, oh, we come in many shades, and yeah, when you start looking like oppressor pink, there's got to be some questions behind why. Okay, let's be honest. Once you start looking like white people, you have to have some direct white in you at some point. I mean, your grandparent, your parents, somebody. We're not gonna just say we all come in. I mean, maybe we come in different shades of brown. Okay, we come in different shades of brown. There's dark skin brown, medium skin brown, light skin brown. Once you start looking pale, once you start looking palm colored, yeah, that's not really black anymore. That's, yeah, obviously there's some white in you somewhere. But like I said, for Pinky, she looks the way she does. And like I said, I'll just say my theory that, I said in part two. I think Judge, the granddaddy Judge, is possibly her grandfather, aka someone that Dicey probably got with when they were younger, and that made Pinky's half black mother, and then Pinky's half black mother probably, you know, got phallically assaulted by some white guy that produced it Pinky, and that's how Pinky looks the way she does. And honestly, even when Tom was visiting, and Pink, not Pinky, but Dicey's character was looking at him like, okay, what do you want? Not only was she afraid that her granddaughter was gonna basically white out whatever remaining black genes she had, because it's like, okay, if she goes with this guy, if she marries him, she has kids with him, then those kids are basically just white at this point. I mean, there's no part anything. That's like, wow, you know, yeah, technically they'll be octoroon, says they'll be like 1/8, but still basically white. So she was afraid that her black, whatever remaining black genes there are, is just going to be wiped out within, Pinky's next relationship with a white guy. So she, you know, hated, like, I mean, like I said, you already see your grandkid looks nothing like you. So just imagine the next generation after that. That's, I mean, something a lot of black people really don't think about when they have kids and their kids, date out, or even when the black person themselves date out and then they got mixed kids and then their kids might not be with a black person. So, we don't think about what our grandkids look like. Now, unless you're the self hating type, you probably hope your grandkids don't look like you. But I don't think Dicey's a type that wants eh, tech, like, let's put it this way. I don't think she was self-hating enough to where she wanted Pinky to look like that. It just was an unfortunate situation that had her looking like that. So, and honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if she probably wanted Pinky to stay so that she, and, claim her blackness so that she could at least, maybe find a nice black guy to procreate with and bring some of that melanin back. I mean, she wanted her grandkid to have an education, but she still wanted her to still claim blackness. So, you know, and she might have that chance. I mean, now that her and Tom broke up and whatnot, and Tom went back north, and Pinky's running the hospital, maybe she might find a nice black guy who might bring that some of that melanin back in the family. Who knows? But I just wish there was a lot more like questions to be answered, because the thing about Dicey is that we don't, and remember, these are just my theories, so it's not canon. Okay, you know how people have their little fanon ideas of certain things in their stories and whatnot. This is my theory. Okay, I'm not saying this is what the director had in mind. This is not what they wanted in the story. And like I said, I could be completely wrong, but that's just what I think. So it's up for interpretation, and that just means there's just not a concrete answer to what kind of character Dicey is. Like I said, we just see her life revolving around Pinky. We don't really see what she is on her own outside of Pinky and Miss M, and we don't even see that. So it's like we don't. I know she's supported, so it's not really about her, but still, she is an important part of Pinky. So I just wish there was like some background and there's some information of the family tree at least. You know. Now, I know white people don't want to, especially white men, don't want to bring certain parts up, but hey, if it's part of the story, didn't bring it up. But yeah, it's just a lot of unanswered questions in the movie that makes Dicey's character a little hollow for me. So not only does she kind of look mammy-ish compared to her granddaughter, but she basically is the only family that her granddaughter has, and vice versa. So she has nobody else outside of Pinky, which is, sad. Only one kid, and that kid's dead, and one grandkid, and your grandkid looks nothing like you. So it's kind of a sneaky way to kind of get a black woman to take care of a white person if they're related, but the person they're taking care of still looks white like anyone else. So it's like, oh, they're still taking care of a white person even if they're related. So I get it, but that's kind of a sneaky way to kind of put some stereotypes in without it being obvious. But that's the thing about me. I think a lot deeper when it comes to stuff like this. So on one hand, like I said, and well, this is going to be a plus, not a negative, but this is going to be a plus of why I like Ethel's role more than Hattie's. But Hattie, like I said, not Hattie, but I'm sorry, Ethel's role, like I said, she's like I said, she has okay, she has more of a, I wouldn't say a sad, somber personality, but she's more like worried and kind of like, oh, worried about her granddaughter, worried about Miss M. So I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but at least it's not really comedic. She's not just a big black lady who gets sassy. See, there you go. That's what I was looking for. She's not sassy. Okay. She might have little country quips here and there, country analogies and whatnot, but she's not sassy. So I like that they broke away from the sassiness at least, and just basically gives her grandmotherly wisdom and and correction of just wanting her granddaughter to do better. So, or to least better than what she was. So at least she's not sassy. At least there's that I could give the role of Ethel in this movie. At least her character wasn't sassy. But still, like I said, you have the physical juxtaposition between the white woman and the black woman, and you also had basically the older black woman being basically the only caretaker of this white woman, even enough to where she's spending her hard-earned money to get her to school to make sure she had a better life. And I know that's her grandkid, but still, I mean, if you didn't know, you would think otherwise. So it's not bad. The movie's not bad itself. It's not bad, but the character itself is just a little too sus for me. Like I said, it's not. I wouldn't say I totally rock with it. I mean, like I said, I just wish there was just more to Dicey Johnson's character. I just wish they kind of went more in her history, more talked about, what happened to her daughter, Pinky's mom. I wish Pinky talked about that. So I'm sure she probably told her granddaughter it'll be the history of her family at some point. But that's why theories exist. So we can fill in the blanks when there's nothing there. So Yeah, but overall, I could watch this movie again. I like the ending definitely, but definitely the movie itself. Um, I rock with it. I mean, the movie itself, I definitely rock with it. But Dicey's character, I just wish I don't hate the character at all. But I just wish it was just more nuanced to her. I mean, I like that she's not sassy, but I just wish there was just more to her. I just wish she just had more character outside of her granddaughter and Miss M. And, I just wish they go into her background. And, if her and the judge actually had a thing going on, I kind of wanted to see, them interacting with each other to kind of give a subtle hint maybe there was something there. Something. I just wish there was just more to her. There's not enough for me to rock with it. You know what I mean? So I don't hate it. I just wish there was just more to it. But overall, I rock with the movie itself. Um, Ethel's role gets a little too sus for me, but it is what it is. And the next movie role, actually, no, not yet. But the next video I will do after this, um, is why the one drop rule needs to die, and it's based off the theme of this movie. Like I said, with Pinky being passing for white and whatnot, especially when she was up in school. But yeah, the one drop rule is definitely a theme in this movie that I will definitely go in more in depth with the next video, especially with the why the one drop rule needs to die. Okay, this is, you know, and I'll just point out, real life examples, movie examples of why we just don't need the one drop rule. I mean, why it's there, but why we don't need it, especially in today's society. That's my next video. So that before I go to the next performance, I'm going to go to why the one drop rule itself needs to die. But after that video, I will talk about the third black person to be nominated for an Oscar and the first to ever be nominated for a Best Leading Actress. And that is Dorothy Dandridge and Carmen Jones. And this is Spoiled Raters coming to you with more movies to spoil and rating and performance to rate. All right.